Hey, Pascal here, nice to see you on my channel. So you want to get your first drone but you don't know which one exactly, then this video is for you because we're figuring out what's the best drone in your case as a beginner. So at first I want to say sorry here, you might hear some chicken screaming in the background or whatever, but it shouldn't be a huge problem. I just didn't want to do the video inside my room because the room has a very bad room tone there, and I heard that in the past 2 videos and that really doesn't work that good. So I decided to go into the garden here on beautiful Bali in our villa. It's nice, love it. Yeah, but let's get started. So you're looking for a beginner drone. So let's first discuss on what's important if you want to get a beginner drone. So I would say an important factor, of course, at first is the price, obviously, because you don't know where to get with drones. If you want to do it professionally, if you want to do very cinematic stuff, or if you just want to play around a bit, which is also totally okay. So the price is definitely an important point. And the second thing is the picture quality, of course. I mean, even if it's a beginner drone, you at least want to get a decent picture quality. I mean, even your iPhone today shoots great videos, so why wouldn't your drone, right? And then another important factor, I would say, this is safety. And safety is, of course, it should be safe for you so that you don't lose your drone and lose your money directly. But of course, you also want to be safe for others. So you're not an experienced drone pilot in the beginning, so you definitely want to make sure that other people are not affected by your not existing flying skills, right? And then of course ease of use. I mean, if you're starting out, you want to have fun with your drone, so it shouldn't be too complicated to control the drone, right? So these are the 4 factors that I will talk about here in the video to basically see what drone fits best for you. And I have one little tip from the beginning. So I already mentioned ease of use. And I would actually say that it makes sense, at least if you want to get better at drone flying directly, or if you want to see a fast improvement, then you should get actually 2 drones. And the first drone, of course, it's your normal drone, like nice picture quality and so on. But you should also get a second drone, and I would say the second drone, the best thing that you can get is simply a very small, tiny toy drone that doesn't cost much money, maybe 30 to 50 bucks, because those drones are actually the opposite of easy to use. They are extremely hard to use. They don't even stick in the air in one point, like hovering in the same height. No, you really have to control everything, and it doesn't sound like much fun right now, but actually you can even fly them in your room, you can fly them everywhere, because these drones are so small, they in most countries are not even regulated, so they're also quite safe. And it's good for training, because if you're able to control such a drone that doesn't even keep its height, then you can definitely control a bigger DJI drone or whatever. So this is really good for training, and it doesn't cost that much money. And let's say you're flying with such a drone for 1 or 2 months, maybe once per day or so, that's already enough. Then you become a much better drone pilot without having to pay much money, without having the risk to lose your primary drone or whatever. So that really helps a lot. Just a short tip here at the beginning. So, but now it's getting a bit more interesting. We were talking about the drones that you could get, at least now in 2019. In the future it may be a bit different, because the drones are developing all the time. There are new coming drones out, but I would say the main product lines of the drones we discuss here will stay around the same. So if you're, let's say you watch this video in 2020 or later, then just watch around for these product lines that I mentioned here. Probably they will get out a second or third version already, and you can get one of these. So, but let's make it a bit more interesting here. Let's talk about the actual drones that you could choose as a beginner. And to make it clear from the beginning, I will only talk about drones that are under $1,000 US, because it's clearly for beginners, so you don't want to spend too much money on it. And there are a few drones out there actually, and of course if you watch the video a bit later, like now it's 2019 January, if you want to watch it in 2020, 21 or whatever, and then the drones might develop a lot in this time. So check out the same product lines that I mentioned here. Maybe there's already a second or third version out there, then you should probably get that one. So, but let's get started. So the first drone that I want to mention here is the Tello, and I want to mention that the Tello is already out of the game simply because it's a toy drone, like I mentioned before in the short tip, and it has a little bit better camera maybe than other toy drones, but this drone, it's just no point in getting it, really, just forget it. It's a toy. So the real drones that I want to talk about here starts from the DJI Spark, then we go over the Mavic Air, the Mavic Pro, and the Phantom 4 and Phantom 3. And with the Phantoms, I must say, especially with the Phantom 4, I mean the Phantom 4, not the Phantom 4 Pro. Phantom 4 Pro is clearly out of the price range, Phantom 4 Advanced as well. But the Phantom 4, you can make good deals when you buy them used, so that's why I also want to mention it here. But let's get started with the Spark. So I would say from a price point, the Spark is in the normal pack, not the Fly More combo. It's $479, I think, and in the Fly More combo, what you would usually get, you pay $649, so $650 around. And it's already not that cheap, I would say, but it's the cheapest of all drones that we are discussing here, at least when you buy it new. When you buy it second-hand, it's always a bit cheaper, of course. And yeah, I mean, the Spark, it doesn't have so much range, so that makes it a bit safer, but of course, yeah, you sometimes want to fly a bit farther away, so there you're a bit limited. But the camera, I mean, the camera compared to the other drones that we're discussing is also not as good. You don't have 4K, you only have 1080p, which is not bad, but of course today 4K would be nice to have. And the overall quality of the camera is still okay, I would say, like from what I've seen from others. Nothing bad with it, but it's definitely not for professional use, or if you want to get serious cinematic shots or something like that, like you can do, for example, with the Mavic lines already. But I mean, especially if you just want to get started and you're not that ambitious with drone flying, if you just want to make some holiday shots or whatever, then the Spark could definitely be a good and easy option, especially because it's so small and lightweight, you can really carry it everywhere. And regarding the safety also with Spark, it's under 300 grams, so it's the most lightweight drone that we're discussing here, and that makes it pretty safe, because at first less mass means of course less danger in the air, but also the motors don't need to be that strong, and that means that it's less likely that the motors would cut you. Let's say you crash into yourself, or you put your fingers inside the props, or you maybe, if you do something totally wrong, you crash into another person. Then with a Spark, it's definitely that you will cause the least damage. Not to mention that you should still be very careful with that, but it's definitely safer than other drones simply because of its size and weight. But let's talk about the next drone, the Mavic Air, and I really love the Mavic Air. I used it for around half a year in 2018, and this is a great drone, really. It's also a bit limited with the range, but it really depends where you are. If there's a lot of Wi-Fi around, or let's say some buildings and so on, then it's really not that good. You usually stick within 200 or 500 meters, but also when you're in the pure nature, you can fly a bit farther, so it's not that bad. And especially for the Americans that watch this channel, it has the FCC mode in there, which is usually normally enabled in America, and the FCC mode makes it a lot better. You can fly a lot farther and you get less problems with Wi-Fi. So I would say, especially for the Americans, this weak range of the Mavic Air doesn't really count. So from a safety perspective, it's close to the Spark, I would say. I mean, it's a bit bigger and it weighs around 500 grams, so the motors are a bit stronger. But to be honest, like, once I was flying the Mavic Air from a kayak in Halong Bay, and I had to hand catch it because the waves were shaking me too much. And because the waves were shaking me too much and the drone is so small, I actually grabbed in the propellers. There were no other chance anymore to get the drone back. And I was already thinking, okay, I have to grab in the props now. Good. But I thought I would bleed or something, but it didn't happen. Like, of course, it hurted a little bit, but I didn't have any injuries from that. I was not bleeding or anything. It was not cutting my hands. So I would say from that perspective, the Mavic Air is also quite safe. But of course, it's a lot more mass already that's flying through the air, so be a bit more careful especially when you fly around people. You should only fly about people, just to mention, around people, just to mention here, if you're a bit more experienced. Don't do it in the beginning, please. And yeah, from price point, I would say with the Mavic Air you want to get the Fly More combo, which is around 1000 US or a bit less. And for the Mavic Air without the Fly More combo, it's somewhere between 700 and 800 US dollars. So it's around $300 more than the Spark, and I would say it's definitely worth the upgrade, because you have more range, you have a much better camera. The camera of the Mavic Air is really great. It's even better than the camera of the Mavic Pro, at least from my opinion. You get higher bitrate, 100 Mbits and so on. It's a great drone. And from ease of use, actually forgot to mention that on the Spark. To be honest, all DJI drones are very easy to use, but compared to the Spark regarding ease of use, it has a bit more sensors, so it's less likely that you crash it into a tree or somehow, so that also makes the Mavic Air a little bit better. The Spark only has sensors in the front, as far as I know. I think so, yeah. So the Mavic Air from that point is also a bit better. It has sensors in the front and in the back and to the bottom, so that's already great. But I must actually say that from the ease of use, all DJI drones are very good. Then the next drone would be the Mavic Pro, and where the Mavic Pro really shines compared to the Spark and the Mavic Air is definitely the range, because you can really theoretically, if you're in a country that allows you to do, and if you want to do that, you can fly multiple kilometers away, so that's really great. I'm not that impressed with the camera from the Mavic Pro, for example. I mean, you can get great shots with it, and for photo it's also pretty good, but for video it just has 60 Mbits, and for someone like me that does a lot of color grading and so on, it's not that good. But for you, when you're just starting out with drones, you probably don't do that much color correction and so on anyway, so it's not that bad in that case, and you get a lot more range. But it's also a lot bigger as the Mavic Air, so from this perspective, from a safety perspective, it's definitely a lot more dangerous than the Mavic Air, especially if you grab into the props or if you fly it somewhere around people and so on. Not to mention that you definitely should stick to local laws and general safety rules, like don't fly close to airports and so on. Especially with the Mavic Pro, I have to mention that, because the Mavic Pro flies a lot farther away. And yeah, but apart from that, the Mavic Pro is great, and it's right now around the same price range as the Mavic Air. It's probably a bit harder to get a new one right now, because, well, the Mavic Air is out, the Mavic 2s are out and so on, so of course they are sold less. But especially when you buy it used, secondhand, you might get some good deals. So the Mavic Pro might also be a good drone to watch into, and I would say especially because of the increased range, I would say that the ease of use is a little bit better than the Spark or the Air, because you're always safe that you don't lose connection. You have to fly really far away to lose connection with that drone, and that's great, yeah? So the next drones is the Phantom line, so the Phantom 4 or the Phantom 3. When you want to get a Phantom 3, definitely get the Phantom 3 Pro. I was using the Phantom Standard when I started, Phantom 3 Standard. It was really not good. Like, the range was very bad. Like, the range from the Mavic Air, for example, is much better than from the Mavic 3 Standard. And I don't know, compared to the Spark, it's maybe the same. Maybe the Phantom has a little bit more. But definitely get the Phantom 3 Pro, because it has a lot more range. The camera is better, you have 4K quality and so on. It's overall a lot better. But there's a huge problem, and that is that it doesn't have any sensors. So you have to fly lots more carefully. And I mean, when we talk about the sensors already, it also means that ease of use is definitely not as good as from the Mavic Air or the Spark, which changes with the Phantom 4, because on the Phantom 4 you already have sensors. The range is around the same as the Phantom 3 Pro, maybe a bit better. And yeah, I mean, of course it's around the same ease of use than like the Mavic Air, for example, or the Spark. But it's a lot bigger, so you have to be a lot more careful with that drone. That's around, I think, 1.4, 1.5 kilo in the air, so it makes a huge difference, and it's also a lot harder to carry around. Yeah, I would say from a pricing point, I don't really know, to be honest, right now, because it's more that you buy these drones secondhand, especially the Phantom 3 Pro. You should get it pretty cheap. I personally wouldn't pay over 500 US for that. Maybe a Phantom 4, maybe 600, 700 US, so it's around the same price range as the Mavic Air. And in that case, I think I would get the Mavic Air, because well, it's smaller. It's just so tiny, and this is nice. I love it. Then our last drone stands a little bit out, and this is the Parrot Anafi, which looks cool to me. You get 4K, and it's a bit bigger than the Mavic Air, but it's still small, so that seems to be great. And I think from the ease of use, it shouldn't also be more complicated than DJI drones, I think. And I just saw, not a real review, but Philip Bloom mentioned in some videos that he really liked the picture quality of it. So I would say the picture quality here is pretty good, also from the Anafi. But it's not DJI, and I must actually say that DJI they have a 80% market share on the drones, and they have the most experience when it comes to drones, and I never had any big issues with DJI drones, to be honest. It always works perfectly, and when I crashed my drone, it was always my fault and not the fault of DJI there. So that's why I would personally always go with DJI. But I definitely want to mention the Anafi here, because it's also a drone in the price range. It's probably not as good as the Air, I would say, because you have less sensors and so on. But yeah, if you want to get something else in DJI, maybe have a look into that. So let's come to a conclusion here. Which drone would I personally get? And I would strongly recommend to get the Mavic Air as your beginner drone if your budget is a little bit higher, simply because you have an awesome picture quality. It's really good, especially if you use the cine-like and a bit flatter settings. You can still do a lot with the footage in post-production. It's great, and it's very easy to fly. It has sensors to the front and the back. It's great. The only real downside with the Mavic Air is really the range, but especially if you use FCC mode like mentioned before, it's a great drone. And of course, if you want to get everything a bit cheaper, then probably go for the Spark if the picture quality doesn't matter and you don't want to fly so far away. If you want to stick maybe within 100-meter range or so, and this is fine too. And what I also want to mention here is that you should definitely have a look on second-hand drones, because you get them a lot cheaper. But what you should definitely look for is that you can test the drone before you buy it, simply because it's very easy to crash drones and you can never be 100% sure if the drone is okay that you get this. So definitely test it before you get it, and then you could probably get a really good bang for your buck when you buy a second-hand drone. So just a small recommendation here, because you definitely want to save money in the beginning. Getting a second-hand Mavic Air or Mavic Pro, for example, could be a very good option. And yeah, like not just also for the Mavic Air, like mentioned before, it didn't cut my hands or anything, so this is really a very safe drone. And also one thing I want to mention here regarding the safety from DJI drones, they all have geofencing. A lot of people don't like it because, let's say for example, when you're too close to an airport, then it blocks you from flying. You cannot start the drone anymore without unlocking something. And I personally would say that this is actually good, because sometimes you're close to an airport and you just didn't think of it, or you didn't realize it, especially when you're in the city, for example, and there's an airport close. It can happen, and then it really prevents you from causing some danger to others. So in my opinion, this geofencing is very nice. It's a handy feature, and if you want to break this feature, then you do something illegal anyway, so there's no point in not having that. So just to mention here for the safety. So much for the conclusion here. I still really love the Mavic Air, even if I have to defend the Mavic 2 right now. It's just a better drone in the long term. You can get more cinematic shots with that, but as a beginner that's really not needed. So what do you think? What drone do you want to get, and what's your experience if you already get your first drone? Leave it in the comments below. I'm really interested, and I hope to see you in the next videos, because I publish one video every Sunday, so definitely hit the subscribe button now, and see you then.